All right, thank you for joining today. I appreciate everyone taking some time out of their busy schedules to hear about commercializing in rare disease product space. We'll talk a bit about the risk areas that we've seen as the marketplace is evolving and insights from our firm's experience and our client team's experience in commercializing rare disease products. I'm Beth Sherman. I'm a Chief Operating Officer and founding partner of Herspiegel Consulting. I'll be joined by my colleague Vince, who's going to share some of the insights from commercialization as well. We'll talk a bit about the rare disease landscape and insights about the growth in rare disease product commercialization. Vince will talk about commercial activities, specifically insights in patient journey understanding and patient identification, the importance of really robust data analytics for rare disease commercialization success. We'll share with you insights about some of the strengths and weaknesses of organizing and creating a rare disease company for commercialization and that transition from clinical to commercial. And finally, a focus on market access and patient support strategies that are so critical in this space where patients and caregivers and HCPs really need robust support for ensuring access to products and starts with a new product formulation potentially and with success on long-term adherence. We don't have a Q&A today, but you are welcome to reach out to us individually. At the end of the talk, you'll see our emails again, and feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to continue the discussion. Herspiegel Consulting is a specialty pharmaceutical-focused, biotech-focused service provider of commercialization services. We offer strategy and implementation through the life cycle of the brand. This is a small subset of our team based in Yardley, Pennsylvania. That's where our main office is. We have others, individuals staffed throughout the country, and we are happy to meet here at our office or at client sites and work remotely with client teams. Our service offerings are really focused in this commercialization space where we offer a tremendous amount of experience in product launch. We've launched over 75 products across therapeutic areas. Our services cover strategy and implementation across marketing, medical affairs, and market access, and additionally patient services design. In each of those areas, we've conducted many strategy projects and followed through with implementation. And we've grown as the trend has grown to offer fully outsourced commercialization, where we are the entirety of a commercial team for organizations looking to conduct commercialization, but not do all of the hiring of internal staff and management of all of the agencies. Rare disease, it's a growing area for commercialization. As policy changed and it became feasible to do more investment and more trial design and execution in the rare disease space, it's resulted in an increase in rare disease product launches. And in fact, in 2022, you see that about half of FDA approvals are expected to be in rare disease. And that was the case for the last few years as well. What does that mean? Smaller and more diverse patient audiences. That means you have to do all of the foundational elements of commercial marketing, and you have to be able to help with diagnosis and identification of patients for the specific disease you're looking for, and you have to be ready to be available and have educated physician audiences and other healthcare providers for when they have that moment of rare disease diagnosis and patient treatment need. It's actually resulted in more specialized KOLs as they focus in on these rare diseases, and for commercial teams, additional investments that are needed to ensure that you can reach patients and physicians at the right moment and really support the opportunity for commercialization and meeting patient needs. Rare disease launches typically mean a compressed timeline. The fast track designation actually reduces the timeline from product NDA submission or BLA submission to approval. In a normal situation, you might have a year or more. In rare disease, it is 6 months, sometimes much less. Sometimes you're launching with phase 2 data and you get approval even faster than the PDUFA date. And that means you need agility as an organization. You need to be nimble. You need to fund commercial planning early. And you need to ensure that you can execute in compressed timelines and have different scenarios under which you're planning so that you can meet sometimes very condensed or unanticipatedly early approvals. It's really a boon to patients. It's a fantastic thing how many trials are undergoing right now for rare disease. In fact, across all 3 phases, if you just take a snapshot of 2022, there's over 1,000 rare disease focused trials, and they run across therapeutic areas. This is probably not a completely comprehensive list, but you'll see that there are a lot of different therapeutic areas and trials that, when we start to dig into it, really cover a lot of opportunity for development and new MOAs. The result of that is commercial teams that have a lot to accomplish for readiness of the marketplace and readiness for commercial success so that patients have the ability to access their products. I'm going to hand it over to Vince, who'll talk to you a bit more about some of the insights that we see in some areas that we think there's opportunity to help commercial teams be successful in the rare disease space.
Thanks, Beth. So as discussed, the 4 pillars we will talk through are patient identification and journey understanding, data and analytics, organizational capabilities, access and support strategies. So diving into patient identification and journey understanding. I'll start by going through some challenges that we see with our partners. It starts typically from trying to launch a product with previous therapeutic experience and using those assumptions to launch a novel product with either a smaller subset of patients or not understanding long-term outcomes. So with that, we see that there's often challenges in understanding the journey and the solutions which manufacturers are able to intervene for their patients. So what we see in partners that are able to address this and be successful is first understanding the challenges of misdiagnosis and the length of time it takes for a patient to get product and the correct diagnosis versus the previous 12 years that they're unable to see the right specialist, receive the right treatment, and ultimately start the therapy that they need. We also know with our partners that you need to address the complexity of the distribution of the product, whether it is the benefits investigation, prior authorization, or SP coordination. It's very challenging to get the patient product in an efficient manner. So understanding these challenges and addressing them is crucial to understanding the full scope of the patient journey. Additionally, understanding that there's multiple partners involved with the patient journey ecosystem. There may be a hub, maybe an SP, the manufacturer, all trying to intervene on the behalf of the patient. So understanding that these touch points need to be streamlined and efficient are very important for giving the optimal experience for your patient. Lastly, it's understanding the challenges of a patient evolve over time. Often the challenges that a patient may face getting product is going to be very different than the therapeutic fatigue maybe 2 months into a certain product, or the expectations of that product need to be set appropriately for both the patient and the HCP. And as a partner to clients working through the patient journey understanding, we have a case study here, which is very interesting, where the patient adherence program was implemented because the product itself took around 2 months before there was any efficacy and beneficence shown to the patient. So what we did was implement an adherence solution with our client to provide an engaging experience from day 1 to month 2, so that they understood that eventually the product would work. And this ended up helping increase adherence by 13%. So this was a really great case study of understanding the patient journey could prove positive outcomes for the patient. Next, we'll get into data and analytics. So to start again with some challenges that we see in the rare disease space is the breadth of ecosystem of data and the partners that all host different sources of data. If they are not aligned in both cadence and reporting structure, we see that there's a miscommunication in identifying patient status, location of the product and the distribution of the product, and monitoring KPIs and post-launch metrics. Another challenge we see is that the design that is often thought through business insights is not always implemented from a technology standpoint, and the execution does not always positively meet the brand's goals and objectives. This often is derived from either high cost, unique solutions and a long time to create those solutions, or off-the-shelf solutions that don't address the nuances of rare disease. So a lot of times what you have to do is correctly build the timelines and have the gap between technical implementation and business insights closed through having a strategic partner and understanding that translation process. To dive into more critical success factors of data and analytics in the rare disease space, it's understanding you must have robust pre- and post-launch KPIs and reporting infrastructure. You must understand the data that you're getting from your partners, what that data is driving to, and how they can all speak together on the same language, on the same platform, and really create a comprehensive, clear data ecosystem. So we say that as the second pillar is knowing what you need to march to from business insights and the implementation, but then also understanding not only how the data works with you as a client or manufacturer, but how you work together in the ecosystem and how you communicate through all partners to create a robust data ecosystem. Lastly, it's the understanding of what is compliant and what data can be shared both externally and internally. We see this a lot with consent and the way data is being able to be passed from vendors, setting up the correct consent, patient consent, and where that data can be transferred and that tokenization across vendors and partners. A case study here that we see quite often actually is having multiple data vendors looking to create this 360 view of the patient and the challenge that inherently occurs with multiple data vendors. It's difficult to capture real-time understanding of the patient data and the status of where the patient is in their journey when there's multiple cadences and multiple data structures being transmitted on a daily or weekly basis, sometimes even monthly. So what we did as a partner for our client was evaluate their data ecosystem, come in, create alignment amongst the team, and produce a streamlined system that had real-time updates of the patient status. With that, it allowed the client to operationally pull through those technical implementations, which led to reduced time at the hub and overall increased the adherence because patients were able to start product faster. Next, we'll get into organizational capabilities. Some of the challenges we see in rare disease therapeutic areas is the growing competitive nature of these markets. In previous years, there were far less products, but with novel technology, the rare disease space has become much more competitive. So with that, there's smaller patient segments, which means you must be more deliberate in your approach to addressing these specific patients for your product. With that smaller patient segmentation, you tend to have smaller teams dedicated to a product launch. Often rare disease products are under-resourced, both from a people, but also from a resource financial budgeting standpoint. Again, we see a challenge of, due to the competitive nature of rare disease markets, a challenge with access, insights, and strategy. So as formulary barriers are increasing and markets are becoming more competitive, having a lack of access strategy becomes challenging to get your product post-launch onto formulary and provide access for your patients. Last, we see a challenge of post-launch monitoring tools and the accountability for who is responsible for guaranteeing the success of the brand, who is, from a roles and responsibility standpoint, who is able to make enhancements and understand when the brand needs a shift or pivot strategically. So having clear understanding of responsibility for a tactical pull-through is crucial and often a challenge we see from smaller teams. Where we do see success in this space, though, is the understanding of your competitors, but also looking at best-in-class examples through benchmarking. We also see early commercial planning is critical in the rare disease space. With leaner teams, it takes longer for both approval, for financial budgeting purposes, where you need to start early and give yourself the lead time in case a pivot does need to happen or a tactic needs to be revamped pre-launch. So giving yourself enough buffer time pre-launch is critical to be successful in the rare disease space. We also see that when these teams are lean, having outsourced commercial experts are critical to the success of your team. We know that in rare disease and smaller teams, team members often wear a lot of hats, but where there are gaps, there are solutions for you externally to leverage that experience in rare disease in your specific therapeutic area, which then allows you to turn on and off the switch of having more robust team members that can pull through specific tactics for launch. And lastly, we see having a robust access strategy for these new emerging competitive markets is crucial when historically the precedents of formulary barriers or exclusions were not in specific therapeutic areas. So making sure you're dedicating the right amount of people and resources to your access strategy is really important. Here we have a case study looking at a challenge of one of our clients where we came in because they didn't have a robust, comprehensive go-to-launch strategy. The teams were not aligned internally. There were challenges with the global and local affiliate teams pulling through strategy into tactics. So we came in as a partner to evaluate the current state, show them a gap analysis where they could improve, and create a very robust launch planning tool where every tactic was mapped, interdependencies were laid out, and solutions were implemented in a timely fashion, because this product was going to be a first to market, first mover product. And if they didn't hit their launch date, it would have given the opportunity for competitors to come in and grab substantial market share. So luckily, we had the opportunity with our client to align the teams internally and launch this product as intended, which did give them the opportunity to grab substantial market share. Lastly, we'll talk about access and support strategies. So I touched on a few of these, but when we look at supporting our patients, breaking it down to the access, financial reimbursement support, and also the services, emotional adherence, providing nursing support, education, they're really the two main groups that we look at as having successful services for our patients. But there's a lot of challenges with this. One is there's increasing formulary barriers. Policies, whether it's OIG guidance or new compliant rules that pharma are adopting, it's challenging to support patients in this evolving market. We also see that with the ecosystem being so robust, there's challenges with overlapping services from your different partners in the ecosystem. We see that SPs and hubs often reach out to the patient, creating a cumbersome first few days, trying to get the benefits investigation, working through the prior authorization process. So a challenge there is not to overwhelm the patients you're looking to support, but also still provide a high touch experience where they do feel supported. Another challenge we see is how to monitor the utilization and impact of services. It's difficult to implement a nurse, adherence nurse or educational nurse, and understand how many patients this positively impacted and kept on therapy, kept them compliant. Now, this can be supported with a robust data ecosystem, but it's difficult to always have the justification of how a specific service led to a positive patient outcome. That also creates challenges internally to develop business cases of why resources should be allocated to a specific service when the KPIs are there to support a resource allocation to a specific service. But where we do see success in this space is having an omni-channel engagement for patients and HCPs. So understanding you must meet the patients, the HCPs, and other stakeholders such as caregivers, where they're at. Every therapeutic area and disease state is different. So having a clear understanding of where the patient is and how you can support them is really a successful driver for patient services. We also see from an access standpoint, having novel payer engagements such as value-based contracting. So understanding as the access landscape evolves, so do the solutions to work with payers and SPs. So having a creative and understanding the specific therapeutic area and the challenges your product will face is really important. I think this third bullet is probably the most important, which is creating a 360-degree view of your patient and providing support that addresses all aspects of the patient. It's emotional support, it's behavioral support, it's education, it's financial support. It's that full patient experience that is really crucial to providing patients long-term success on your product. And lastly, it's understanding that whatever services you launch with may not be the same services that you want in market 6 months or a year from now. Are you creating the infrastructure to have a nimble yet supportive system of services for your patients and other stakeholders? And really this comes back to listening to your patients, to your HCPs, understanding the sentiments of stakeholders involved with your product, and being able to adjust with your service offering. We had a case study here that we as Herspiegel supported our client in building a robust cell and gene therapy hub. The client has previously not worked in cell and gene therapy, and the team was experienced in rare disease, but the nuances and the support needed for this product were even more high touch than a lot of rare disease therapeutic areas we work in. So the challenge was understanding how we could intervene compliantly with the patient. How do we support the HCPs, whether it's a logistical challenge of getting the product from a center of excellence to an administration center, whether it was the financial burden of a cell and gene therapy for a patient, what services were needed. We had the great opportunity of sitting down with the cross-functional teams, identifying the specific services needed, and creating a model that was both flexible for all patients, but still addressed the very specific experiences of any patient coming into the hub and ecosystem. So just to wrap this up, really the four main pillars we focus on in seeing success in the rare disease landscape is understanding the patient, and that's at the epicenter of success for these companies and our partners. From there, understanding the data that can support the patient journey, implementing that from an organizational standpoint and creating solutions that are driven by data that are helping patients. And lastly, pulling that through for long-term success of patients from access and providing patient services for your patients. And I would like to hand it back over to Beth at this time.
Thank you for your time today. Hopefully it was an interesting talk and gave you some insights about the complexities and opportunities for success in supporting rare disease launch. We are here to answer questions. We'd love to be able to help you. We've worked on numerous product launches in the rare disease space in across therapeutic areas and have helped organizations identify and mitigate strategies for successful launch. And we are both strategy and detailed execution support for our teams and really would love to be able to help you. You are welcome to reach out to us. Our emails and contact information are on the screen, and we look forward to talking to some of you as you move forward in this path.